Today, December 10th, urgent spiritual alert. Archangel Michael is calling your name. You must open this now before heaven finalizes the shift happening around your destiny and blessings. My beloved child, pause right here. Stop scrolling, stop distracting yourself, and allow these words to reach you. You did not stumble into this moment accidentally. Something has been stirring around you, and heaven guided you here because there is something that must be spoken into your life. You have been questioning what is happening and why things feel so uncertain, and that uncertainty has made you restless inside your own spirit. Yet even in that restlessness, there is alignment unfolding itself. You are standing at the threshold of a shift you did not see coming. It has been forming quietly, almost invisibly, but heaven has been arranging things that your physical eyes have not registered yet. That is why you feel pulled into this message. This is a divine interruption, not a coincidence. You were nudged here because something about your path was drifting, and heaven is reaching toward you before you move further away from what is meant for you. Don't scroll. Stay until the end. Something is opening for you that has been closed for far too long. You may not realize it, but the timing of this moment is sacred. When life becomes heavy, when the signs seem unclear, when the silence feels painful, heaven does not withdraw. Instead, heaven waits for your awareness to open, and today, it has opened. You have felt like you've been holding on by the edge of something fragile. There were days recently when you wondered whether God still walked with you, whether the prayers you whispered were heard or lost in the air. You carried that confusion alone, and even when you tried to speak it, no one fully understood what you were feeling. But heaven understood. Every tear, every unanswered question, every invisible battle has been seen. You are not being punished. Nothing is being taken from you. You are actually being redirected towards something higher than what you settled for. And yes, a part of you fears missing your moment, losing your blessing, or falling out of divine favor. But nothing destined for you is slipping away. Instead, heaven has paused the motion of your path so that you would not settle prematurely. Right now, your life is at a turning point, and this message is arriving as spiritual confirmation. Something needed to reach your awareness before you move forward again. There has been a quiet closing happening behind you, something you outgrew, something that could no longer hold you. And because you didn't feel ready to release it, heaven is moving gently, aligning what was lost with what must be restored. You are not here accidentally. You are here because heaven is announcing that alignment has begun. You've been sensing it without language, feeling something shifting but not knowing what it meant. This is why the urgency in your spirit has increased. Heaven is saying, look again. Pay attention. Something is turning. The uneasiness you've been carrying is not abandonment, it's transition. The silence you felt was preparation. The delays you faced were protection. And the heaviness you experienced was the residue of what is closing behind you. Stay with me, because what comes next will make sense of what hurt you, confused you, and stretched you. You are standing under divine timing right now, and nothing is slipping away. Instead, everything is being recalibrated so that what meets you next is worthy of who you are becoming. And before we move into the depth of what heaven is revealing, take a breath. Let your shoulders soften. Feel yourself returning into your own center. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You have not been replaced. This message is not warning, it is remembrance. A sacred reminder that you are still held in a divine hand, and grace has not withdrawn from you. And now, your spirit is ready to receive what unfolds next. My beloved child, lately you have been walking through days where your spirit felt muted. You tried to pray, but the words did not hold meaning. You tried to feel hopeful, yet something inside of you remained quiet. This quietness was not rejection, and it was not abandonment. It was the emotional equivalent of fog, where vision becomes blurred even though the path still exists beneath your feet. There have been moments when you wondered whether heaven turned away from you. You questioned why prayers seemed unanswered, why doors remained closed, and why silence stretched longer than you ever imagined. You assumed something was wrong with you, or that maybe you disappointed the divine. But this heaviness was not a sign of displeasure. It was a moment of internal recalibration, where your soul needed stillness to reorganize itself. You've been carrying too many energies that are not yours. Thoughts that do not belong to your identity, expectations that were never aligned with your spirit, memories that still echo long after their season expired. When this buildup becomes too full, the emotional body shuts down temporarily. That shutdown looks like numbness, exhaustion, lack of motivation, and withdrawal from the things that once sparked inspiration within you. This period of disconnection was not divine absence, it was emotional overload. Where your heart was trying to detox from what was overstimulating it. Where your inner voice needed space to reorganize truth from fear, intuition from memory, calling from noise. That is why nothing felt clear, why progress felt blocked, and why direction felt scattered. You were not disconnected from the divine, rather, you were disconnected from yourself. Your spirit needed time to unravel the knots that accumulated after disappointment, betrayal, confusion, and fatigue. And in that unraveling, silence becomes necessary. The silence protects you from prematurely attaching yourself to the wrong meaning, the wrong path, or the wrong conclusion. If this resonates, stay until the end because the clarity reveals itself soon. Everything that felt silent will begin to sound purposeful. Every unanswered prayer has been sitting in a space of divine alignment, waiting until your spirit regained its strength to receive what belongs to you without fear of losing it. You are awakening again. Slowly, deliberately, gently. Your heart is remembering the frequency of peace. Your soul is releasing what it internalized when it didn't have answers. And the divine has not moved away, rather, awareness is returning. The fog is thinning. The heaviness is dissolving. And soon, your spirit will speak again, not from confusion, but from restored connection. So breathe for a moment. You did not fall behind. You did not lose your place. What felt like emptiness was restoration. A spiritual reboot. A clearing of static. And now, the energy around you is shifting, making space for clarity, direction, emotional safety, and healed connection to rise within you. You are stepping into belonging, into renewal, and into a peace that gently replaces yesterday's weight. Everything is unfolding softly now. There comes a moment when the spiritual world does not wait for you to reach clarity on your own, and this has been one of those moments. You have been wandering emotionally, unsure of what is shifting, unsure of where your heart belongs, and unsure of how to move forward. That uncertainty did not mean failure. It meant you were getting too close to decisions that would have taken you farther from what is meant for you. That is why divine intervention began moving toward you. What feels like urgency is actually protection. Archangel Michael's presence is often felt when something is transitioning, when a doorway is opening, or when your soul is nearing a threshold you cannot fully see. This is not punishment, and it is not correction, it is retrieval. It is the spiritual equivalent of being gently led back toward alignment before you wander too far from what was destined. There have been signs recently, subtle, repeated, almost insistent, nudges toward clarity, toward release, toward faith. You may not have recognized them as intervention, but you felt the pressure of change. You felt moments where circumstances suddenly shifted, relationships paused, plans stalled, communication turned silent. Yet behind all of that, there was movement working in your favor. Protection stepped ahead of you so that nothing unstable could attach itself to your future. Archangel Michael's presence is felt through barriers that suddenly appear where doors once stood open. Through exits that occurred without explanation. Through spiritual shielding that prevented you from being entangled in situations that would have drained you. Heaven is not letting you fall away. Heaven is pulling you back into what holds purpose. You were not meant to continue wandering in circles, repeating emotional patterns, waiting for someone or something to confirm your worth. The guidance arriving now is meant to stabilize you before the next chapter opens. There is a doorway before you, one that leads to restoration, upgraded relationships, emotional safety, and opportunities aligned with your identity. But before you step through that doorway, the divine has been clearing the space around you. This intervention is gentle but unmistakable. You may feel yourself being redirected, as if something you once chased no longer feels necessary. You may notice peace replacing urgency. That is how spiritual retrieval feels. It is not dramatic, it is grounding. It doesn't force you, it surrounds you. And right now, you are being surrounded. Held. Redirected not away from blessing, but toward it. Something is preparing to unfold, and before it does, your spirit needed to be brought back into alignment. This moment, this message, this awakening is confirmation that you are not walking alone. You are being ushered into purpose with protection leading the way. There have been moments recently when you looked at your life and wondered whether God stepped back from you. You felt prayers floating into empty space, answers delayed, and doors closing when you thought they should open. In those moments, something inside you whispered that divine favor must have shifted away. But what you interpreted as absence was actually sacred observation. Heaven was not ignoring you. Heaven was waiting for the right alignment to settle around you. When God is silent, the human heart often assumes rejection. Silence feels like distance. Stillness feels like abandonment. But spiritually, silence is a high form of movement. When God stops speaking directly, it is because the next step is forming. It is like a seed beneath soil, invisible, but alive. When you could not see any change happening, transformation was occurring beneath the surface. You thought nothing was moving, but everything was being positioned. You thought heaven lost sight of you, when instead heaven was clearing the path ahead. Divine hands do not leave, they simply reposition their grip. And recently, God's hand was not loosening, it was tightening in the places that needed reinforcement. You were being redirected, but it felt like being rejected. You were being preserved, but it felt like being forgotten. There were relationships that fell apart, not because you failed, but because they could not carry your calling forward. There were opportunities that collapsed, not because you lacked value, but because they would have distracted you from the deeper work that was meant to emerge. Silence was shielding you from premature settlement. When heaven is preparing release, plans pause. When heaven is rearranging direction, conversations quiet. And when God is shifting timelines, your spirit becomes still so you do not sabotage what is forming. What felt like inactivity was instruction without words. You were being asked to trust without proof, believe without clarity, and walk without visible markers. But observation is not abandonment. God watches closely when foundation is shifting. The divine steps back only enough for you to grow into your own spiritual maturity. God waited until your strength reconstructed itself, waited until your identity no longer depended on external validation, waited until your heart was steady enough to receive blessing without fear. You were not being ignored, you were being prepared. And now, that preparation is ending. The quiet seasons do not last forever. The hidden orchestration is complete. Your name is rising again, not because you fought harder, but because the timing is finally aligned. Silence held you so you could evolve, and now the divine moves again, not away from you, but toward you, ushering what has been waiting for its appointed moment. There has been a quiet battle around your name, though you may not have understood it while it was happening. Your name has carried identities from the past that no longer match who you are becoming. Old labels, old stories, old versions of you continued to echo, even when your spirit had already outgrown them. And the heaviness you felt recently was not your identity disappearing, it was your identity being rewritten. The divine has been dissolving what was attached to you that never truly belonged. There were names spoken over you by people who did not see your fullness. Names rooted in misunderstanding, judgment, past mistakes, or temporary seasons of struggle. You internalized some of those labels without realizing it. You allowed past versions of yourself to define your worth. And some of those identities stayed longer than their expiration dates. But heaven has been dissolving them. Not erasing you, not removing you, but clearing the old layers around your life. There have been emotional contracts tied to who you used to be, contracts with relationships, expectations, patterns of behavior, and even self-limiting beliefs. These contracts said, you belong in this lesser version, or remain in this cycle because it's familiar. Recently, heaven has been tearing them. That tearing can feel like collapse, like losing your footing, like things falling apart unexpectedly. But this is not the collapse of you. It is the collapse of what is not aligned with you anymore. Don't miss what's being restored next. Because where identity dissolves, destiny begins to rewrite itself. The divine has been removing names associated with lack, with abandonment, with not enough, with being overlooked, dismissed, or undervalued. You may have thought you were losing recognition, but what you were actually losing was limitation. You were not erased, you were cleansed. Something sacred has been happening behind the scenes. Heaven has been rewriting your placement. Rewriting how people see you, how opportunities approach you, how blessings respond to you. Your name is being registered differently, not as someone surviving, but as someone rising. Not as someone chasing love, but as someone worthy of it. Not as someone waiting for approval, but as someone chosen before they ever understood why. This is why certain people have drifted away. They only knew the older name. This is why your desires changed. Old identity no longer fits. This is why doors closed. They were connected to outdated versions of you. Your future requires a name unclouded by former definitions. Heaven is not erasing you. Heaven is renaming you in alignment with the fullness of your calling. You are stepping into a season where your name carries weight again, where doors open simply because destiny recognizes you. Where peace returns because the internal fight over who you are is ending. Where your life reflects the truth of your worth rather than the residue of past experiences. Your name is not disappearing, it is emerging anew. And now, everything that meets you will match who you are becoming, not who you had to be to survive previous chapters. You are being reintroduced, to others, to your calling, and to yourself. And that rewriting is only just beginning. There comes a moment when the path beneath your feet no longer leads where it once did, and that moment is unfolding now. What once felt delayed, paused, or uncertain is not a sign of loss, it is a recalibration. You have grown in ways you didn't even realize, and the life that matched your previous level of healing can no longer meet the depth of who you are becoming. Heaven is adjusting your timeline, not because you failed, but because you evolved. The things that stalled were never meant to disappear, they were meant to mature alongside you. Sometimes the divine slows your life not to punish you, but to ensure that what meets you does not break you. Recently you have been forced to stop rushing, forced to listen inwardly, forced to release expectations that were rooted in old patterns. You may have felt helpless, but what actually happened was alignment. The recalibration happening now is not external, it is internal. Your desires shifted. Your self-worth expanded. Your emotional sensitivity sharpened. You no longer settle with the same ease you once did. Heaven waited for that shift. If you had been given what you prayed for earlier, it would have arrived while your spirit was still fragile, still attached to old cycles, still uncertain about your own value. Now, you are stepping forward from groundedness. This turning point is the moment when the future begins responding to your healed identity instead of your wounded one. That is why certain doors that would have overwhelmed you before will open with grace now. That is why opportunities will present differently, accompanied by peace rather than desperation. The path is no longer about proving yourself, it is about embodying what has already transformed inside you. Relief is coming, not from escape, but from alignment. You are not chasing anything anymore. Instead, what belongs to you is finding its way back. You will notice it through effortless confirmations, conversations that affirm what you already sensed, timing that feels guided rather than forced, signs that mirror your new level of awareness. These are signals of recalibration. The delays you resented were actually preparation phases. You were being stretched to hold more capacity, more emotional intelligence, more spiritual discernment. And now, the timeline is shifting forward again. You are stepping into readiness, stepping into restored rhythm, stepping into a path that matches not who you were, but who you have become. This turning point is subtle, but unmistakable. You can feel it in the quiet confidence rising within you. You can sense it when peace arrives without an explanation. You know it when what once triggered pain now only brings closure. You are not repeating anything, you are graduating. Awakening is not loud, it is a soft awareness that things are finally clicking. The path ahead is not rushed, it unfolds. What once felt like waiting now feels like timing. And as this recalibration anchors, your life will begin reflecting that shift, through relationships that meet you where you are, through opportunities that amplify your growth, through restored momentum that feels divinely supported rather than self-driven. This is the moment when your path aligns with your readiness. And from here forward, nothing is being delayed, only delivered at its rightful time. You've been assuming nothing is happening, but the truth is that signs have been appearing everywhere. The closure that came abruptly, the conversations that ended without reason, the people who drifted away, these were not losses. They were exits designed to clear your path. When something leaves with finality, it is often because what lies ahead cannot coexist with what was behind you. Even the heaviness you've been feeling is a sign of nearness. When a spiritual breakthrough begins forming, the emotional body releases everything it cannot carry into the next chapter. The sudden fatigue, the quiet withdrawal, the overwhelming desire to rest, these are not weaknesses, they are indicators of transition. When heaven prepares something solid, your spirit goes into deep reorganization. You may have noticed unexpected stillness. Plans paused. Communication slowed. Life activities that once demanded your energy seem to no longer hold urgency. Stillness is not stagnation, stillness is preparation. When destiny approaches, distractions fade. Repeated numbers, patterns like 111, 444, 1212, have not been coincidences. They were synchronization signaling timing. Energetic markers placed gently around your awareness so you would not feel alone in the silence. You thought these were fragments of confusion, but they were actually confirmations. What you interpreted as distance was divine proximity. Heaven has been walking closer than you realized, not announcing loudly, but guiding softly. When God draws near, clarity often comes quietly. You are closer than you think. Closer to restoration. Closer to clarity. Closer to what your spirit has been praying for when no one else heard. Those signs have not been pointing to loss, they have been pointing to arrival. And soon, the meaning behind them will reveal itself in real time. There were doors that seemed perfectly aligned, yet they never opened. Conversations that stopped mid-promise. Plans that suddenly collapsed, leaving you confused and disappointed. At first, it felt like rejection. It felt like life was turning away from you in moments when you finally thought momentum had arrived. But those were instances where Archangel Michael stepped into your timeline and blocked what would have drained you. You were protected from entering agreements that would have stolen your energy. Protected from connections that would have demanded more than they ever intended to pour into you. Protected from environments that looked bright at first glance but carried hidden heaviness behind them. What you thought was loss was actually divine redirection. What felt like delay was spiritual interception. There were people who withdrew without explanation. You wondered if something was wrong with you. But those relationships were not built to sustain your next chapter. Their intentions, their readiness, or their emotional maturity did not match the version of you evolving now. Instead of allowing you to be pulled backward through obligation, heaven stepped forward and created distance. Even the inconveniences held purpose. The delayed response, the meeting that didn't happen, the plan that fell apart at the last minute, each one was a shield. When guidance intervenes, obstacles appear where harm was hiding. When your spirit is being elevated, certain paths become inaccessible. Archangel Michael has not been removing opportunities, he has been preserving your alignment. What was blocked would have slowed your growth. What was delayed would have brought confusion. What seemed appealing on the surface carried burdens beneath it. You did not lose anything meant to stay. You were spared from what would have made you question yourself again. And though you may not have recognized it then, you will soon look back and see the protection woven into every interruption. There is something already marked for you, something that has been held in place, waiting for the moment when your spirit could receive it fully. This blessing is not being created, it already exists. The divine did not postpone it, heaven preserved it. But the reason it has not arrived is simple: your heart needed to be ready enough not just to receive, but to keep what is meant for you. You have prayed for peace, love, restoration, stability, and breakthrough. But heaven will not place what is precious into fragmented hands. This is not denial, it is protection. There are blessings that require emotional preparation. Elevated relationships require steadiness, not the emotional urgency of old wounds. Financial expansion requires self-worth, not fear of losing what arrives. Divine partnerships require healed identity, not dependency. Fulfillment requires clarity, not desperation. You have reached a moment where heaven is asking you to hold your blessing with maturity rather than survival instincts. For a long time, you waited from a place of longing, of emptiness, of feeling incomplete. And in that space, receiving the blessing would have made you attached to it as your validation rather than your expansion. Now, that part of the journey is ending. You needed boundaries, not walls, but clarity. You needed discernment, not suspicion, but wisdom. You needed to trust again, not blindly, but from healed awareness. That is why things did not move earlier. Heaven was shaping you into the version of yourself that can sustain the blessing after it arrives. Pause here. Stay until the end, because what is forming next will require your full participation. What you are stepping into will not be fleeting. It will not threaten your peace. It will not abandon you. But in order for that level of reciprocity and spiritual alignment to manifest, you could not carry doubt, fear, or emotional fragmentation into it. If destiny is partnership, you must know your worth before someone else mirrors it. If destiny is elevation, you must believe you belong at that height. If destiny is opportunity, you must enter with confidence rather than apology. The divine has been building internal readiness. You may notice you no longer chase approval. You no longer need external reassurance. You are beginning to trust your inner voice again. These are signs of alignment, not perfection, but readiness. And now, the blessing is beginning to move toward you again. Slowly first, like small confirmations, like soft clarity, like peace arriving where confusion once lived. Then more visibly, conversations opening, invitations appearing, people emerging, decisions feeling easier rather than uncertain. You waited, not because life failed you, but because life was synchronizing around you. What is coming next is not fragile, it is rooted. It is not temporary, it is sustained by growth. And when it arrives, you will not question whether you deserve it, you will know it was always meant for you. Stay with me through the final sections, because what comes next will prepare you not just to receive, but to walk into this blessing fully aligned, fully aware, and fully grounded in who you have become. The waiting phase is ending. The readiness has begun. And soon, the release will follow. There is a quiet restoration happening, and it revolves around your identity, the part of you that once felt unseen, overlooked, or dismissed. For a long time, you walked through life feeling unnoticed, as though your effort blended into the background. You gave your heart fully in places where no acknowledgement returned, and you convinced yourself that perhaps you were meant to exist in the shadows. Yet what felt like invisibility was a sacred gestation period. Your spirit was being prepared for recognition, not erased from belonging. There is a spiritual moment when a person becomes visible again, not because they try to be seen, but because their life aligns with truth. That moment is approaching for you. Heaven is reinstating your name, not by giving you something new, but by returning you to what has always been yours. You are being remembered, not by human memories, but by purpose. There are opportunities that once passed over you that are coming back. There are conversations that once ignored you that will request your presence again. This reinstatement is not loud. It is not dramatic. It arrives through alignment. Someone notices your worth. A doorway once closed begins to open again. A connection that drifted reappears with clarity rather than confusion. You receive confirmation through timing, not pressure. You stand in rooms you once prayed to enter, not because you begged, but because your spirit now radiates what those rooms require. Your identity has been rewritten inwardly. You no longer define yourself through past rejection. You no longer apologize for existing. You no longer shrink to make others comfortable. And because of that, life responds differently to you. When self-worth rises, alignment follows. When internal truth stabilizes, external opportunity recognizes it. This is what reinstatement feels like. Peace replaces anxiety. Confidence replaces doubt. Value replaces pleading. That shift becomes magnetic. Life mirrors who you have become. Where you once felt invisible, people will notice what you carry. Where your contributions were ignored, they will now gain recognition. Where you once questioned whether you mattered, validation will meet you, not because you need it, but because it reflects what you already know. Heaven doesn't give you a title, it gives you identity. It doesn't assign you a label, it reveals who you already were. You are stepping into visibility, not just socially, but energetically. Your life will begin reflecting your inner transformation. Your name will be spoken with respect where it was once spoken casually. Your presence will be honored where it was once overlooked. This is reinstatement. You are not returning to who you used to be, you are returning to who you were always meant to be. And as that recognition unfolds, you will no longer question whether you belong. You will simply walk forward, supported by alignment, and life will answer accordingly. There is something important you must do now, but it does not require force. You are not being asked to push, strive, or demand anything from yourself. What is needed in this moment is softness, a gentle releasing, a quiet surrender, a willingness to loosen your grip on the expectations you once held so tightly. Old versions of your future need to dissolve so the true one can step forward. And that dissolving is not dramatic, it is tender. You breathe, you let go, you allow space for what is forming. Begin by letting old timelines fall away without judgment. The way you thought it had to happen no longer applies. The timeline you imagined is no longer the one heaven is using. Just breathe into that truth, without resistance. Gently place your heart into a posture that says, I allow what is aligned to reach me. If you pray, let the prayer not be for answers, but for clarity. If you meditate, let your stillness be an exhale rather than a search. Heaven is already guiding the direction, you simply need openness to recognize what is unfolding. Forgiveness is also needed now, not forced, not rushed, not as obligation, but as release. Forgiveness does not erase hurt, it loosens the emotional attachment to it. You are not forgetting what happened. You are allowing the wound to stop defining you. That is freedom. Also, begin agreeing internally with what aligns. When peace enters, do not question it. When something feels gentle and spacious, receive it. When a door opens softly rather than urgently, walk through it without doubting whether you deserve what waits on the other side. And when emotional spirals tempt you, fears about timing, worries about outcomes, doubt about your worth, step back rather than dive deeper. You do not need to analyze everything you feel. You are allowed to simply let feelings pass, like weather moving through a sky that does not collapse beneath rainfall. Very gently, trust that what is coming is stable. Very gently, allow life to meet you where you are rather than where you once were. Very gently, keep your heart open. Nothing required of you now is forceful, it is surrender, soft, faithful, grounded surrender into the alignment already forming around you. Take a deep breath now, because this is where everything begins to settle inside you. This is where the confusion that has circled your heart starts dissolving. This is where the heaviness that has followed you begins to lift from your shoulders. You have walked through a long season of uncertainty, where so much of your life felt paused, silent, or unfinished. But what felt delayed was never denial. Heaven has watched every moment, every tear, every prayer whispered from a place of exhaustion, and none of it has been ignored. You are seen. You are remembered. You are known beyond what people understand about you. And right now, heaven leans closer, not to warn you of loss, but to guide you into restoration. You did not lose God's hand, you drifted into a moment where you felt separated from it. But the hand never left. You never walked alone, even though loneliness convinced you otherwise. There is a lifting happening now, not external first, but internal. The weight in your chest is loosening, not because circumstances changed instantly, but because alignment has begun. Every shift you've walked through led you back to yourself. You have reclaimed pieces of your identity that life once stripped away. You have remembered your worth. You have remembered that you are chosen, not accidentally, not temporarily, but eternally. What once defined you no longer holds authority. The labels that belonged to painful seasons have dissolved. And now you stand in a new space where your name is rising again. You are not entering a repeat cycle. You are entering restoration. The divine did not erase your name. The divine erased the version that no longer reflected who you truly are. What has been rewritten cannot be undone. You are stepping into alignment with destiny that has waited for you. You are stepping into relationships that will match your growth. You are stepping into opportunities that will finally honor what you carry. This is a moment of divine remembrance. Heaven remembers you, not the image you struggled to maintain, not the identity formed from old wounds, but the one formed from truth. You are being lifted in ways that will make sense soon. You will see how the silence protected you. You will see how rejection was actually redirection. You will see how delays guarded you from premature settlement. And as you move forward, peace will begin greeting you before answers arrive. You will feel settled before decisions finalize. You will trust without needing proof. That is how alignment feels, quiet confidence without effort. You will be surrounded by clarity that speaks without urgency. You will feel chosen not because something arrives, but because your spirit finally recognizes that it was never forgotten. You are held, even when your hands feel empty. You are safe, even when you cannot see what's ahead. You are rising, even if movement feels slow. Something inside you is awakening to the truth that timing has never abandoned you. What is meant for you never left, it simply waited until you were ready. Let your heart rest now. You do not need to fight for placement. You do not need to chase affirmation. You do not need to explain yourself to be understood. You are stepping into a space where life reflects what heaven already confirmed. And as that reflection appears, do not shrink. Do not doubt. Do not question whether you belong at the table that welcomes you. You are being lifted into alignment. You are being positioned where you will flourish. You are being remembered not because you pleaded to be seen, but because destiny recognizes you. Whisper these words into your spirit: I am not losing anything meant for me. I am returning to what is already mine. Let peace settle into that truth. You are remembered. Your name is not erased, it is rising. This is not the end, this is realignment. And as this message closes, allow its echo to live inside you. If this confirmed something within you, let your life respond. Claim alignment. Speak your affirmation. And if you feel moved, share this message as an act of faith, not because you must, but because blessings multiply when released outward. You are held. You are seen. And you are being lifted into everything that was always meant to find you.